is based on what Nick Mew told you during his testimony was thoughts in his head, the beliefs in his head. What do we know about Nick Mew? We know he's smart, speaks multiple languages, has a couple of degrees, one's in math. He's a calculating person. He's a cunning person. He's a skilled and prolific liar. We know that because every word that came out of his mouth, practically since he started walking away from this group, was a lie, including to his best friend, who he said they took my knife while the knife is still on him. The things he said to Sheriff Knudsen, where he pretended to not know what was going on. And then everything he said to Investigator Hart, Lieutenant Hart. He is skillful at crafting a story that matches what he needs to say to avoid the consequences for his actions. We all know that, it's undisputed. He told you himself, he's a liar, all right? He did not just not lie about the knife. He lied about all kinds of crazy things, bizarre things. Why would he say that these boys pulled his pants down? What a bizarre lie to make up, right? Why would he say that two boys pulled knives on him? He's got to say that because he knows what he did wasn't justified. He thinks to himself, if I say one boy pulled a knife, that would be good, but if it's two, that would be better. So he crafts this elaborate story. His entire defense rests on you believing what he said on the stand yesterday. His testimony was a disaster. He got caught in several lies on the stand. He changed his answers a couple of times when he realized that what he said wasn't helpful to his defense, right? He consistently remembered details from July 30th, 2022 that benefits his defense, but doesn't remember anything about what he did, any of the facts, any of the stories that he told Lieutenant Hart. How is that possible? That he can only remember the facts, the beliefs he had that assist his defense, and nothing else? How many times did he say on the stand, I don't remember, I don't remember, I don't remember? He repeated it over and over and over again because he doesn't want to answer questions about what he did because he knows dang well it wasn't justified. He's lying. He's lying. One of the many things I'm going to be grateful about when this is done is that I never have to hear again that the actions he took that day was the fault of these boys. That's ridiculous. It's despicable. There's never been any explanation from the defense as to why Nick Mew ran up on these boys. Why he grabbed their tubes. Why he was groping around where their legs were. They don't even respond to it. They didn't bring it up. There is no explanation. That behavior is inexplicable. He's a bizarre person. He made bizarre choices that day. It is not their fault. It is not their fault. I'll say it 100 times. It's not their fault. These boys have beat themselves up every day since this happened. You saw the raw emotion on the stand. Their best friend was murdered by this guy. And to say that it's their fault is despicable. Nobody's responsible for Nick Mew's choices but himself. He chose violence at every turn. There's been some question about whether he's fragile. Part of him is fragile. His ego is fragile. As his attorney had said early last week when he's questioning these boys, you were trying to humiliate him. You were trying to insult him. You were taunting him. He was humiliated. He was insulted. He didn't like these boys treating him like that. He certainly didn't like Madison Cohen getting in his face, so to speak. And eventually, he did just snap. He pulled his knife out, getting ready for violence, pulls it out, holds it down where nobody can see it, holds it at his side, and then hits her. That started the violence. He prepared for the violence before he started it. He felt humiliated, and he wasn't going to let it go. I asked him, did you ever take a step back at any time when she was yelling at you? No. With no explanation. We're dealing with what we call false narratives in this case. Things that the defense repeats over and over and over again, hoping that you think it's fact, okay? One of these is this 13-to-1 narrative, okay? We've heard it 100 times in this trial. This is not a 13-to-1 situation. We've got the 6 teenage boys standing on the side by their tubes. He's confronted by the 2 girls. Everybody else is in the background. He hits Madison Cohen when he's only got 2 girls standing in front of him. After the fight, it's one-on-one to start. It's Dante hitting him, and then arguably 2-on-1 when AJ comes up and pushes him in the back. Tony breaks it up. The fight's done. He gets them off. And AJ, of course, is already tore open, so he's laying in the river. But that's the end of the fight. Mr. Mew continued violence. He chose more violence after that part of the fight was done. Tony, who did exactly what his dad told him to do, came up to try to break it up. You can hear him telling Dante, his brother, get away, get back. Mr. Mew turns around and stabs him, and Tony blocks it and stabs him again. He chose violence at every turn. There's another false narrative. They circled him. They surrounded him. Baloney. You've seen the video how many times. There's open water everywhere. That he was attacked from all directions. False narrative. He said that Owen Peliquin testified that they stuck around because they wanted to see how it played out. That's true, but what he didn't mention is that Owen also said he wanted to make sure he didn't do anything to this woman. And you know what? Those instincts were exactly right. Those instincts were right. He keeps talking about how these boys wanted to make a video. Well, they were making a video. But what does that matter? They didn't start the violence. None of those boys laid a hand on him, despite the fact that he touched both Joanne Cockfield and Landon Wire when he ran up on them in their tubes. Nobody laid a hand on him until after he had already stabbed a number of people. Isaac Schumann tried to stop him. He got killed for his efforts. He seems to be arguing, the defense seems to be arguing that Isaac somehow deserved it. I don't understand that argument. He's trying to protect people. He calls Maddie Cohen the queen of the river, and he calls her a bully, calls her a number of other unkind things. Her testimony was, and it's clear from the video, she was trying to protect these boys. She saw that he was over there doing something, that it was freaking them out. She tried to protect them. You know, maybe if we had more people on the river trying to protect people, the world would be a better place. They've made, over and over, they've argued that Maddie was never punched because she has no marks on her face. Nick Mew, who, as Mr. Trosty said, was lifted off of his feet by the punch from Dante and punched in the jaw and fell in the river, gets up and there's no marks on his face. We have pictures from him. We have the video. We have his interview with Lieutenant Hart later. We have the pictures that the jail nurse took 5 hours after. There's no bruising. There's no puffiness. There's no swelling. The fact that they're arguing that Maddie had no mark doesn't matter because he didn't either. It happens. They're trying to say that he was terrified. His face tells a different story. He has expressions of anger. He has expressions of, I guess, humor. He's smiling. He's smirking. Well, after he has his knife out, he clearly feels comfortable. There's no look of terror in his face at any time. KJ Martin was not armed. He pushed Mr. Mew in the back. We know that. He didn't kick him, he didn't punch him, he didn't hold his head underwater. He pushed him in the back. And for that he got a incision on his body from his belt line all the way up. You saw the pictures. It's horrible. He used no weapon against Mr. Mew. They made a big deal about Lieutenant Hart telling Mr. Mew in the interview that she would have been scared too. Well, she made that response after he'd been feeding her a load of BS about all this stuff that supposedly happened. About having two kids pulling knives on him and pulling his pants down and all the baloney that he fed her. Based on that, she said, yeah, I would have been scared too. They're arguing that he had no intent to kill Isaac. Isaac weighed 134 pounds at the time. He's 250. He rams his knife up, not down, up, severing two of Isaac's ribs right into his heart. All right? If he didn't intend to kill him, why not stab him in the belly? Right into his heart. We've heard no explanation whatsoever as to why he stabbed Riley Madison. We know from the video she's standing off in the background after Tony's trying to break it up. He just walked over and stabbed her. She wasn't attacking him. They don't explain that because there is no explanation. None. He wasn't in fear for his life from Riley Madison. She said she was 110 pounds now, might have been 115 back then. There's no fear for his life. He just was mad because she touched him. They've talked a little bit about the extraneous factors. It's not just medical attention that can be an extraneous factor. As we know, multiple people on the river stopped to help these folks. Putting compressions on. One witness said they used a sandwich bag to try to make a chest compression. There was a lot of interventions for these folks. We know with Riley Madison specifically that Larry and Davis and his brother, we saw it on the video, got her to shore on a tube. People went out of their way to help these folks. These are extraneous factors. But another extraneous factor is he just got unlucky. You know, if he, as Mr. Anderson had said, we've got arteries, we've got organs. Dr. Meyer said, you know, whenever you have an abdomen wound, you have to check all those things. It's kind of a miracle that more people didn't get killed. It's not by anything he did. He just got lucky. Missed major organs and arteries. The bottom line is he had 4 hours from the time that he was arrested to the time that he concocted this ridiculous story about the boys pulling knives on him and pulling his pants down and all this other bizarre baloney. He used his intellect, because we know he's smart, to craft this story. And he was very deliberate and detailed because he wanted to come up with a story that he thought would be sufficient to convince people that he acted in self-defense. We know he lied about all of it. So now today, he's saying, well, sure, I lied about everything I said when I talked to Lieutenant Hart about what happened, but now I'm telling the truth. So now believe me. No. You have my full confidence. I know you're going to return a just verdict of guilty and deliver justice to Isaac Schumann and everybody else who got hurt by this man. Thank you.